The world is falling apart out there, but the real collapse starts inside you. The brutal Stoic doesn't run. He doesn't complain. He faces it head on. And today, you're going to learn how to do the same. They taught you to run from pain. We're going to teach you how to use it. Philosophy isn't comfort, it's combat. And brutal Stoicism is your only weapon. Today, you'll discover the 25 most brutal lessons of Stoicism. Principles forged in silence, in suffering, and in cold reason. These aren't tips, these are weapons. And when this video ends, you'll either be stronger or you'll keep living like everyone else, weak, reactive, and lost. Some things are within our control and others are not. Epictetus' few ideas are as powerful and yet as often forgotten as this simple distinction Epictetus gives us. We're surrounded by expectations, desires, and frustrations. We react to what people say, to things not going as planned, to the chaos of the world. But what if the real problem isn't the world, but our confusion about what we can actually control? The dichotomy of control is the heart of Stoicism. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest philosophers of ancient times, taught that the key to inner freedom lies in clearly understanding what depends on us and what doesn't. It sounds simple, but living by it takes philosophical courage. What's under our control? Our judgments, our intentions, our voluntary actions, our desires and aversions, our rational will. This is what Epictetus calls our responsibility. Nothing more. Your reputation, not under your control. What others think of you, also not. Whether a project succeeds, how someone you love responds, market trends, or world stability, all outside your control. But your mind, your ability to respond with virtue, no one can take that from you. And here's the turning point. The more energy we waste trying to control what we can't, the more we suffer. Anxiety, anger, frustration, all of it comes from trying to grasp what can't be held. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. But when we focus only on what we can influence, we find a quiet, unshakable strength inside. Epictetus wasn't some out-of-touch theorist. He lived under extreme conditions. He was enslaved, humiliated, and endured unthinkable hardship. Yet he didn't see himself as unhappy. Why? Because he knew that real freedom, real peace, couldn't be taken by any master, emperor, or disaster. This mindset changes everything. It's not about escaping reality, it's radical realism. A Stoic doesn't ignore the world, he accepts it as it is, imperfect, unstable, often unjust, but he refuses to be lost in it. Now, a common mistake, some people confuse this idea with passivity. They think a Stoic just accepts everything, doesn't act, doesn't care. That's wrong. The Stoic takes action with strength. He fights for what's right, but he lets go of the outcome. As Epictetus says, you can be invincible if you don't fight battles that aren't yours to win. In other words, the Stoic does his part and lets go of the rest, not because he doesn't care, but because holding on to what you can't control is becoming a slave to chance. Think about your worries today. How many are tied to things beyond your control? What others will say? Whether people approve of you? Whether life goes as planned? Epictetus would say, you're suffering from expectations, not reality. And he'd call us to a daily practice. Examine your thoughts, identify what you can control, and release the rest with dignity. This practice is freeing. You're no longer tossed around by the world. You steer your life with reason. The Stoics called it autokaia, inner self-sufficiency. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and fellow Stoic, echoed this in Meditations. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Take care of them, because that is within your power. That's the logic of the dichotomy of control. You have the power to build a virtuous inner world, even if the outer world falls apart. But this principle isn't just for hard times. It's a daily guide. In every decision, you can ask, is this up to me? If yes, act with clarity and courage. If no, accept it with calm. In practice, this means, if you're giving an important presentation, focus on your preparation, your ideas, your effort. Don't cling to the audience's reaction. If you want a healthy relationship, be honest, generous, and virtuous. But don't try to control the other person's behavior. If you're facing loss, remember, you don't control the impermanence of life. But you can choose how to respond, with bitterness or acceptance. That's what the Stoics mean by freedom. Not political freedom, but freedom of the soul. True power, said Epictetus, is to rule yourself, to know that even if everything around you falls apart, you can still act with integrity. That can't be taken from you. The dichotomy of control is an invitation to grow up. It's the foundation for every other Stoic virtue: courage, justice, temperance, wisdom. Without this clarity, we're just leaves in the wind, reactive, confused, suffering. But with it, we're like deeply rooted trees. The wind blows, the rain falls, the seasons change. But we remain grounded, guided by reason and virtue. Epictetus calls us to live as agents, not victims. And that takes constant practice. Philosophy isn't just abstract comfort. It's a way of life. And to live well, in the Stoic sense, is to stay clear-headed in the face of what we cannot control. Live according to nature. At first glance, this phrase might sound like a call to a simple life, connecting with nature, escaping the cities, avoiding the chaos of modern life. But for Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, this idea carried a much deeper and revolutionary meaning. To the Stoics, living according to nature doesn't mean following our basic instincts or chasing natural pleasures. It doesn't mean living like animals or trees. It means living in alignment with our rational nature and with the rational order of the universe, what they called the Logos. Zeno believed the entire cosmos is filled with reason. There is order, intelligence, and structure behind everything that exists. Not a mystical force, but a rational principle that connects all beings. And we, as human beings, share a spark of that reason. We can think, choose, judge, and act with wisdom. So to live according to nature is to live according to that reason, both within us and beyond us. But what does that mean in practice? It means striving to live with virtue. Because for the Stoics, virtue is the purest expression of reason. When we act with justice, courage, wisdom, and self-control, we are living in harmony with our true nature. We are being who we were meant to be. Here's where Stoicism contrasts sharply with many modern philosophies. Stoicism doesn't put happiness as life's ultimate goal. It puts virtue first. Happiness, eudaimonia, is a natural result of a virtuous life, not the main objective. When you live in line with reason and nature, you find a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Zeno understood that nature follows its own laws. Everything is born, grows, and dies. Seasons change. Things rise and fall. The universe doesn't bend to our personal desires. It follows its own logic. When we resist that order, we suffer. When we accept it with wisdom, we find freedom. So, living according to nature also means learning acceptance. But be careful. Acceptance is not the same as resignation. It means doing your best within your control and accepting what isn't with peace. A river doesn't fight its banks, it flows. A Stoic does the same. He acts with integrity but flows with life. If we all share in the same universal reason, then we're not isolated. We're part of a cosmic community. Every human, regardless of culture, race, class, or nationality, shares the same logos. That's where Stoic cosmopolitanism comes from. The idea that we are all citizens of the world, children of the same divine reason. This worldview breaks down walls. It calls us to treat others with respect, compassion, and justice, not because the law says so, but because it's natural. Stoic ethics don't come from the outside. They grow from the very structure of the universe, and that completely changes how we view relationships. Living according to nature also means living simply, not in the sense of giving everything up, but not letting yourself be ruled by excess, luxury, or vanity. Stoics didn't condemn wealth or comfort. They just saw them as indifferent. What matters isn't what you have, but how you live. If you're rich, be virtuous as a rich person. If you're poor, be virtuous as a poor person. Nature doesn't demand equal possessions, only equal virtue. Centuries later, Marcus Aurelius echoed Zeno's ideas in Meditations. Everything is in line with nature, even death, even loss, even pain. Whatever nature does is what the universe allows. This quote invites us to look at hardship differently. Sickness, loss, failure, all are part of nature's order. We shouldn't hate what nature brings, but learn from it. Every moment is a chance to practice virtue, and once you realize that, something shifts inside you. You resist less, complain less, stress less. You begin to trust the wisdom of the universe, and at the same time, you take responsibility for your role, your actions, your thoughts, your choices. Living according to nature is a kind of integrity. It means not betraying yourself, not acting against your own reason, choosing what's right, even when it's hard, staying straight in a crooked world. As Seneca put it, true joy comes not from going against nature or pushing past its limits, but by following it and imitating it. And that takes constant awareness, because we live in a world that pulls us away from our center. We're tempted by speed, comparison, distraction. Stoic philosophy is a call to return to ourselves, to slow down and remember, nature doesn't rush, it moves steadily, and so should we. Zeno founded his school in an open public space, the Stoa Poikile in Athens. There, among paintings and columns, he taught that wisdom is living as part of a whole, not as isolated egos, but as conscious fragments of an ordered cosmos. That's humility, and it's also strength. Living according to nature means resisting the illusion of total control. It means doing what matters and letting the rest unfold. It means being active in what we can control and peaceful in what we can't. It means finding calm without giving up, strength without pride, and courage without haste. Accept everything that happens as necessary. Marcus Aurelius. Imagine looking at every event in your life, good or bad, not as a disruption on your path, but as a necessary part of it. Imagine facing what hurt you, what frustrated you, what broke you, and still being able to say, yes, this too. That's the heart of amor fati, the love of fate. One of the deepest teachings of Stoic philosophy, and perhaps one of the hardest to truly live. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and author of Meditations, didn't write for an audience. He wrote for himself. During wars, plagues, betrayals, and loss, he scribbled thoughts to stay grounded. Among those thoughts was this: fate is not an enemy. Fate is a teacher, and what happens to us, no matter how painful, is part of what was meant to happen. Amor fati is not resignation. It's not just accept it and be quiet. It's not apathy or weakness. It's actually the opposite, an active and courageous acceptance of reality. It's not about tolerating what happens. It's about embracing it, as if each moment had been handpicked for you, even if it feels unfair or senseless. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Love whatever happens to you, because nothing is more suited to your needs." That line can feel strange, even provocative, but what he meant is, nothing happens outside the rational order of the universe. Nothing is random. Even if you don't understand it yet, everything has its place in the bigger picture. Pain, loss, disappointment, all part of the invisible tapestry that makes up life. This requires a radical shift in perspective. We're taught to fight life when it doesn't go our way. We complain, resist, blame, and that only adds to our pain. A Stoic doesn't do that. A Stoic looks fate in the eye, not as an enemy, but as a hidden ally, even when it hurts. Seneca, another Stoic thinker, said, "It's not that things are hard because we don't accept them. They're hard because we don't accept them." And he was right. The real suffering comes from resisting reality, from resentment, from constantly rejecting what is. Amor fati is the courage to let go of that resistance. It's trusting the flow of life, even when it carries you somewhere you didn't want to go. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Think about a deep loss, someone you loved, gone. The Stoic doesn't say you won't feel pain. He knows you will. But instead of drowning in despair, he looks at that pain with awareness. He allows himself to grieve, but also asks, what can I learn from this? What is life trying to show me here? Accepting fate isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming strong. It's saying, life doesn't owe me comfort. It offers me chances to grow. It's saying, I don't know why this is happening right now, but I trust it's part of the process. It's saying, even this, especially this, will shape who I am. Centuries later, Nietzsche brought amor fati back in a powerful way. He said, "My formula for human greatness is amor fati, not wanting anything to be different, not forward, not backward, not for all eternity." In other words, don't just accept what happens. Want it to have happened exactly that way. No erasing the past. No rewriting the story. No wishing life had been something else. That's a spiritual leap. Because as long as we're stuck wishing life were different, we're trapped by an illusion. But when we say yes to reality, all of it, we find a strength that no hardship can break. And here's what's even more powerful. Amor fati frees us from the illusion of control. You can choose your actions, your values, your attitude, but you don't control the wind. When you accept that, you learn how to navigate wisely. You stop fighting the world and start flowing with it. Steady, but not rigid. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that happens is as natural as a flower blooming in spring or a storm in winter. Tragedy only exists for those who resist what nature brings." That's not cold, that's clarity. Peace doesn't come from controlling fate, it comes from walking with it. And remember, accepting fate doesn't mean doing nothing. The Stoic acts with strength, with virtue, with excellence. But he acts within reality. He plants, but doesn't demand the harvest. He loves, but doesn't demand a return. He gives, but doesn't cling to promises. He lives with an open heart, even knowing he may get hurt. Because he knows everything that happens is necessary. Amor fati is, at its core, a philosophical act of faith, not blind faith, but a rational trust that the universe has its own order, that what looks like chaos today might reveal wisdom tomorrow, that life doesn't miss the mark, we just don't always see the whole picture. To love your fate is to love life exactly as it is, not as you wish it were. For the Stoics, there is only one true good, virtue. Seneca, one of the greatest voices of Roman Stoicism, put it simply, "It's not because things are difficult that we don't dare. It's because we don't dare that they are difficult." And daring to live with virtue, even in a cynical world, might be the greatest challenge of all. But what did he mean when he said that virtue is the only true good? In a society that praises external success, wealth, status, beauty, prestige, Stoic philosophy invites us to look inward. For the Stoics, anything external, unstable, or temporary cannot truly be called a good. Money can be useful, but it's not the good. Health is desirable, but it's not the good. Fame may feel nice, but it's not the good. These things, the Stoics said, are indifferent. They can be used for good or bad, depending on the person. A wealthy man can still be a scoundrel. A sick person can be virtuous. An unknown person can be nobler than an emperor. What really defines the value of a life is not the outcome, it's the conduct. Virtue, or arete in Greek, means moral excellence. It's living in line with reason, integrity, and courage. It's doing what's right, even when no one is watching, even when it costs you, even when the whole world is against you. To Seneca, virtue wasn't just the highest good, it was the only intrinsic good. Everything else is secondary. Virtue is what makes you free, because it's the only thing fully within your control. Think about it. Everything you own can be taken from you. Your wealth, your looks, your status. But your virtue, your ability to choose what's right, to stay dignified, to be just even in the face of injustice, that no one can touch. So what makes up virtue, according to the Stoics? 4 pillars. Wisdom, knowing what's right, thinking clearly, acting with understanding. Courage, facing what's difficult without giving in to fear justice. Giving others their due, respecting them as equals. Temperance, exercising. Self-control, avoiding excess, staying balanced. These aren't abstract ideas. They're daily practices. They show up in how you treat strangers, how you respond to mistakes, how you deal with criticism, temptation, or loneliness. And here's the austere beauty of Stoicism. Even in misery, the virtuous person remains whole. Even under attack, he stands firm. Even forgotten, he knows he's doing what's right. Virtue is the light that shines in the dark. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more miserable than one who has never faced adversity. He has never been tested." To the Stoic, adversity is opportunity. It's the test that reveals your true self. A ship only proves its strength in rough seas, and so do we. Virtue is only proven when life gets hard. Seneca warned us about a common trap: confusing means with ends. Wealth, health, fame, pleasure. These are means. They can be useful, but they're not the goal of life. Chasing them as if they were the highest good leads to illusion, and a life of emotional highs and lows. But when virtue is your compass, you're no longer a slave to circumstances. You live with a rare kind of peace, because you know the essential part of life is already inside you. You can lose everything and still keep what truly matters. That's freedom, that's strength, that's character. The Stoic doesn't wish for an easy life. He wishes for a good life. And for Seneca, a good life isn't a comfortable one. It's a life of coherence. Coherence with your principles, your conscience, and the rational order of the universe. He said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present moment without anxious dependence on the future. And that freedom only comes when you stop chasing results. When you stop basing your peace on external success and start anchoring it in the quality of your actions." Of course, this takes discipline. Virtue doesn't grow by accident. It's cultivated. It's built through vigilance, effort, and daily self-reflection. Marcus Aurelius, who admired Seneca, practiced this every day, examining his mistakes, his choices, his thoughts, not to punish himself, but to refine himself. Because the Stoic sage doesn't strive for perfection. He strives to be better every single day, and he knows that the greatest victory is not over others, but over himself, over pride, over fear, over anger, over vanity. That's virtue in motion. And here's something powerful. Virtue also teaches us how to suffer with dignity, to not collapse in despair, to keep the soul upright even when the body is weak. Because as long as the soul is upright, even if the world falls apart, there is still good. Virtue connects us to what's most noble. It doesn't depend on religion, wealth, or status. It's universal. It's available to everyone. It's the only kind of wealth that grows when shared. And it's what makes a life, any life, truly worth living. Seneca didn't preach from a place of comfort. He lived at the center of Roman politics, through conflicts, tragedies, and exile. And still, he wrote with clarity and strength. It is not luck, but virtue that makes a man. Freedom, a word celebrated for centuries, but what does it really mean? For Epictetus, it doesn't mean doing whatever you want. It's not about following every impulse, desire, or emotion. Real freedom is self-mastery. It's being the master of your own mind, not being dragged around by it. This idea is at the core of Stoic philosophy. Mastery over yourself is the foundation of all other virtues. Without it, we're slaves, not to outside tyrants, but to our own cravings, fears, and chaotic emotions. Epictetus was a literal slave, but even in chains, he found a kind of freedom that no master could take away, inner freedom. The power to choose how to respond, the strength to keep his soul upright, even when his body wasn't. He understood something in practice that most never grasp in theory. The real prison isn't outside, it's inside. So what does self-mastery look like in everyday life? It means not giving in to your first impulse. It means thinking before acting. It means choosing what's right, even when what's wrong feels easier or more tempting. It means not snapping in anger, not getting lost in anxiety, not being manipulated by fleeting desires. Self-mastery is quiet strength. It's the calm determination of someone who knows who they want to be and doesn't get thrown off course by cheap distractions. Epictetus said, "No one is free who is not master of themselves." And that applies to everything. Emotions, desires, reactions, habits. If you don't rule your mind, something or someone else will. Maybe it'll be fear, maybe vanity, maybe the craving for comfort, attention, or approval. But in the end, that's slavery. Just wearing the mask of freedom. Inner discipline is the path that leads to self-mastery. And discipline isn't punishment. It's not harsh or cold. It's love for yourself. It's commitment to who you want to become. The Stoic doesn't build habits out of obligation, but out of respect for their rational nature. Epictetus taught this with both strictness and compassion. He said, "If you want to grow, be steady. Let go of easy pleasures. Don't follow the crowd. Stay true to what you know is right." That takes courage, because we live in a world that pushes us to go with the flow, to follow desires, trends, urges. Follow your heart, they say. But what if your heart is out of order? What if it's being led by ego, fear, or resentment? Self-mastery doesn't reject the heart, it guides it. It puts reason in charge, not as a tyrant, but as a wise guide. Without inner discipline, the soul becomes divided. We live split lives. We say one thing and do another. We plan to wake up early, but hit snooze. We want to be patient, but explode. We want to be strong, but sabotage ourselves. This inner chaos eats away at us, and the only real cure is the daily practice of self-control. Marcus Aurelius, a student of the Stoic school, reinforced this in his Meditations. The soul that rules itself is unconquerable. And that strength doesn't come from pride, but from peace, the kind that comes from knowing you're in control, even when the world isn't. So how do you build that day by day? It starts with small decisions: how you begin your morning, what you choose to eat, how you respond to a rude comment, the urge to procrastinate, the choice to be honest when no one's watching. Epictetus suggested a simple exercise. Before every action, ask yourself, is this in line with my rational nature? In other words, is this who I truly want to be? If yes, do it. If not, resist. It's training, a daily workout of the will. And yes, you'll mess up. But self-mastery doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. It's like sharpening a blade. Every time you slip, you come back with more clarity. Every fall makes you stronger. Discipline also frees us from being ruled by our emotions. The Stoics didn't say you should suppress emotions. They weren't robots. They felt things deeply. but they weren't ruled by their feelings. Epictetus said emotions are like wild horses. If you train them, they'll take you far. If you don't, they'll throw you off. Self-mastery is what turns instinct into conscious choice. And today, that matters more than ever. In a world that constantly pulls us outward, with notifications, ads, distractions, comparisons, real power is turning inward. It's owning yourself in the middle of collective noise. Self-mastery also means giving up the victim mindset. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That awareness is transformative. It pulls you out of helplessness and gives you your dignity back. You are not what happens to you. You are what you do with what happens to you. Seneca put it simply, "He who is defeated by himself will be defeated by anything. But he who conquers himself can lose everything and still remain whole." The Stoic is an invisible warrior. His battle isn't out there, it's in here. He fights his habits, his fears, his impulses, and with every small inner victory, he becomes more free. Stoic freedom isn't doing whatever you want, it's having the strength to do what's right, even when you don't want to. And that's rare, because it takes a quiet kind of heroism. The heroism of resisting your own ego, choosing discipline over instant pleasure, and mastering yourself, which is why you are truly free. Are you truly present right now? Or has your mind already drifted to the past or wandered into the future? For the Stoics, living fully begins with one simple but demanding habit: constant awareness. The Greek word they used was prosos, which means directed attention or mental vigilance. It's not just about being awake, it's about being conscious, with the eyes of the soul wide open, watching not just the outside world, but your inner world, your thoughts, emotions, judgments, intentions. Prosos was at the core of the Stoic way of life. Without it, no virtue can grow. How can you act justly if you don't even notice when you're being unfair? How can you be brave if you don't recognize when fear starts creeping in? How can you be free if your thoughts are running on autopilot? Epictetus would often say, "Always be on guard. Watch your thoughts because they shape your character." This kind of vigilance isn't paranoia, it's clarity. It's the awareness that your mind is a battlefield, and if you're not paying attention, you'll be defeated by your passions, your impulses, your distractions that slowly pull you away from what truly matters. Practicing prosos means living with intention. It means not letting life unfold on autopilot. It's asking yourself moment to moment, what am I thinking right now? Is this reaction fair? Is this decision aligned with my values? Or am I being driven by vanity, fear, or blind desire? Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, almost like a daily reminder, "The soul becomes colored by the thoughts it holds. Be careful what you allow in." Think of the mind as a temple, and the Stoic is its guardian. Nothing gets in without being examined. Nothing is accepted without reflection. This kind of awareness transforms everything, from your smallest actions to your biggest choices. For the Stoics, mindful awareness wasn't a relaxation technique. It was a way of living with clarity. It wasn't about emptying the mind, but filling it with presence, to be fully engaged in every moment, to stop living distracted, numb, unaware. Because a distracted mind is a vulnerable one, easily manipulated by fleeting emotions, outside opinions, and random events. And what the Stoics taught was this: what truly belongs to you is within. Your judgments, your decisions, your actions. And to take charge of that inner territory, you must be present, with firmness, clarity, and discipline. The lack of prosos is the root of so much suffering. How many times have you reacted impulsively and later regretted it? How often have you been overcome by anger, jealousy, or anxiety without even knowing where it came from? How often have you spoken without thinking, judged without understanding, acted without reflection? Epictetus warned, "It's not what happens to us that disturbs us, but the judgment we place on it. But to change those judgments, we first have to notice them. And to notice them, we have to be aware." That's the key. Mindful awareness gives us the power to step in before we fall, before the harsh words, before the thoughtless decision, before the emotional outburst. Without awareness, everything happens before we realize it. With awareness, we can choose, we can pause, we can act with reason, not just reflex. Stoic prosos is a kind of real-time self-examination. It's tied to self-mastery, the building of virtue, and inner freedom. But it's also incredibly practical. It helps us live better, with more presence, more awareness of the moment. Seneca said, "While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away." And he wasn't criticizing laziness. He was pointing to distraction, to the habit of always being somewhere else, thinking about what's next, what already happened, or what could have been, but never about what's right now. The Stoic trains their mind to return to the present, because only in the present can we act with virtue. Only now can we fix a mistake, do something good, or make a just choice. The past is over. The future isn't here yet. The present is where everything happens. So how can we cultivate this awareness in daily life? The Stoics suggested simple but powerful practices. Start the day with intention. Before getting out of bed, ask yourself, how do I want to live today? What challenges might I face? Where do I need to stay focused? Tai, what's your thoughts? During the day, pause for a moment. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Why? Is this aligned with reason, with my values? Review your actions at the end of the day. Marcus Aurelius did it. Epictetus recommended it. Before sleep, reflect. Was I just? Was I impulsive? Where can I improve tomorrow? Avoid empty distractions. The Stoics valued focus. Avoid gossip, noise, or content that weakens your mind. Keep your mind clean, like a sacred space. Practice inner silence. It's not about being quiet on the outside, but listening within. What's really moving you right now? What forces are shaping your actions? The practice of prosos is demanding, but it's freeing. It transforms your life from the inside out. It's not magic, and it's not a quick fix. It's training, it's vigilance, it's a kind of loving, steady attention, not based on guilt, but on commitment. Because in the end, as Epictetus said, if you want to be good, start by believing it's possible, and by watching yourself like a loyal guardian. Stoic. Awareness doesn't ask you to be a saint, it asks you to be conscious. And with that consciousness, choose to live with virtue, clarity, and dignity. Are you truly free, or are you a slave to your emotions? The question might feel uncomfortable, but the ancient Stoics, especially Zeno of Citium and Epictetus, challenge us to face it head-on. For them, real freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's not being controlled by wild emotions. That's what they called apatheia. A state of emotional freedom, of active indifference, where reason guides your actions, not impulsive reactions. But let's be clear, apatheia doesn't mean being cold, numb, or emotionally dead. The Stoics weren't trying to turn people into robots. They just didn't want us to be hostages of our emotions. They believed in feeling, but without being dragged, crushed, or ruled by those feelings. Zeno taught that the human soul has two options when it comes to emotion. Either you control it, or it controls you. There's no neutral ground. If you're not paying attention, your reactions will take over. So, what are these wild emotions they warned about? They're impulses that override reason, anger that explodes without warning, fear that freezes you, envy that eats away at you, desire that traps you, resentment that poisons your mind. The Stoics didn't judge emotions for being natural. They warned about what happens when emotions become our masters. Epictetus, who turned his life as a literal slave into a school of inner freedom, said, "It's not the events themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. That's the root of apatheia. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding where they come from and judging them through reason. Fear isn't born from real danger, but from how we interpret it. Anger doesn't come from others, it comes from how we choose to react. Passion isn't some outside enemy, it's an internal imbalance. Active indifference is a state of clarity. It's when you feel something, but you don't get swept away. It's when you notice an emotion rising, but you don't immediately give in. You're like an experienced sailor who sees the storm ahead, but doesn't let go of the wheel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If your soul remains still, no pain from the outside can disturb you, just like clear water doesn't ripple from a light stone." This kind of inner clarity isn't about having no feelings. It's about having reason in charge. It's being calm in the middle of chaos. It's having the freedom to not lash out at an insult, not collapse from loss, not act out of blind impulse or temporary emotion. And this isn't something that happens overnight. It takes training, not denial. Apatheia is the fruit of prosos, stoic mindfulness. You notice what you're feeling, you question your thoughts, you step in before things explode. It's about control, not repression. You don't say, "This doesn't affect me, just to fake it." You say, "This is happening inside me, but I choose how I respond." Epictetus gave a powerful exercise. When something disturbs you, say to yourself, "This is just an impression. I don't have to follow it." That's the key. Emotions come, but you don't have to follow them. You have a choice, and with each conscious choice, your freedom grows. But remember, active indifference isn't moral indifference. A Stoic doesn't ignore others' suffering or injustice or the pain in the world. He cares deeply, but he doesn't drown in it. He acts with clarity. He helps when he can, but he doesn't get consumed by chaos, because he knows that a mind overrun by emotion becomes ineffective. Apatheia, then, is a state of inner readiness, where nothing knocks you off balance, where nothing rules you without your permission. It's like standing in the eye of a storm, calm, steady, grounded. And why did the Stoics see this as essential? Because for them, virtue can only grow in a well-ordered soul. If you're ruled by passion, how can you act justly? If you're blinded by anger, how can you be wise? If you're consumed by desire, how can you be self-disciplined? Virtue needs clarity, and clarity needs emotional freedom. Apatheia isn't the goal, it's the ground where virtue takes root. Seneca said, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is powerful." And conquering yourself is exactly that. Learning not to be a slave to what rises up inside you. Learning to contain it, redirect it, understand it. Apatheia isn't the death of emotion. It's the rebirth of reason. So how do you practice this in daily life? 1. Watch your judgments. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Is this based on truth, or is it just my mind exaggerating things? Chat. Practice the pause. Between stimulus and response, insert awareness. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself a rational question. Review your reactions. At the end of the day, reflect. Was I overwhelmed by any emotion today? How could I have responded with more clarity? Don't beat yourself up. Learn from it. The Stoic path isn't about cold perfection. It's about constantly reshaping your soul. Apatheia is a high ideal, but not unreachable. With every small inner victory, you move closer. Every time you choose reason over reaction, you grow stronger. Active indifference is spiritual strength. It's firmness without harshness. It's sensitivity without being emotionally enslaved. It's choosing freedom over inner bondage. Zeno founded his school under the columns of the Stoa Poikile. But the real temple of the Stoic is a mind. ruled by reason. That's where true peace is born, not from the world around you, but from the conscious choice to never be a slave to yourself. Before every action, think about what could go wrong. Seneca, most people expect life to go smoothly. They believe that if they plan well, work hard, and do things right, everything will fall into place. But the Stoics offer a tougher and more liberating perspective. They don't expect the worst out of pessimism. They prepare for it out of wisdom. That's what Seneca called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, or more clearly, preparing for adversity. It may sound counterintuitive, but this practice doesn't come from fear. It comes from courage. It's not about anxiety. It's about building resilience. It's mental training that makes us less fragile when the unexpected hits, and more calm in the face of pain. Seneca, who lived surrounded by power, tragedy, and betrayal, once said, "Expecting life to be painless is like expecting the sea to be still during a storm." Premeditatio malorum is the understanding that suffering is part of life, and because of that, it shouldn't shock us. We should prepare for it, not with bitterness, but with clarity. And that changes everything. Imagine starting your day by asking, what could go wrong today? Sound dark? It's not. It's realistic. Maybe someone will criticize you. Maybe your plans won't work out. Maybe someone will let you down. Maybe you'll get sick. Maybe you'll lose something or someone. Or maybe none of that will happen. But if it does, you'll be ready, because you've already faced it mentally. Seneca wrote letters full of comfort and wisdom. In one, he said, "A sword kept in its sheath scares no one, but the man who mentally rehearses misfortune, that man cannot be shaken. By imagining the worst in advance, you reduce the shock. You remove the surprise, and with it, much of the suffering. Because most of the time, what breaks us isn't the event itself, but our emotional collapse when it catches us off guard. Premeditatio malorum is a mental shield. It doesn't stop pain from arriving, but it keeps it from catching you off balance. It's like a soldier who trains hard before battle. He doesn't want war, but if it comes, he's prepared. The Stoic trains the soul the same way. This practice also changes our relationship with desire. When you reflect on what could go wrong, your need for control softens. Your attachments become lighter. You realize things can fall apart, and yet you can still stand tall. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, echoes this wisdom. When you wake up, prepare yourself to encounter ungratefulness, betrayal, arrogance, envy, and selfishness. All of these are part of human nature. He didn't say that to justify cynicism, but to ground your expectations, to remind you the world is what it is, not what we wish it to be, and by accepting that, we suffer less, judge less, and act with more clarity. This mental preparation also helps us cultivate gratitude. Yes, gratitude. Because imagining loss reminds us of the value of what we already have. When we consider that we might lose our health, we cherish our bodies. When we imagine that a loved one might not be here tomorrow, we love them more fully today. Premeditatio malorum wakes us up from the illusion of permanence. Seneca wrote, "We should love as if we might lose, possess as if it could be taken, live as if everything is borrowed." This awareness frees us from arrogance. It makes us more humble and more grateful, because when we accept the possibility of loss, we live the present more deeply. Paradoxically, by thinking about death, we honor life. But be careful. This exercise is not a call to paranoia. It's not about living in fear of the worst. It's about preparing for it with calm. It's about knowing that if adversity comes, it won't destroy you. It will shape you. It's a training ground, a mat where you practice virtue. Imagine, for example, you're about to present an important project. Instead of just hoping everything goes perfectly, the Stoic asks, what if someone interrupts me? What if I get criticized? What if I forget something? And then he trains his mind to handle each of those situations with strength. If everything goes right, great. If not, he's rehearsed it. He's already fortified his spirit. He's built resilience. Adversity for the Stoic is inevitable, but it's not a tragedy. It's a chance to show the strength of your soul. Like an athlete who gets stronger under weight, the Stoic grows through difficulty. He doesn't seek out suffering, but he uses it. And here's one of Seneca's most powerful lessons. No, wind is favorable to a sailor who doesn't know where he's going. But for those who do, even storms can help. Premeditatio malorum is that inner map. It's clarity of direction. It's knowing that even if your ship is tossed, the one steering it knows what they're doing. You can't control the ocean, but you can control the wheel. And that awareness is what sets you free. It's what makes you strong. It's what gets you ready. So tomorrow, when you wake up, don't just hope for a good day. Picture what could go wrong. Not to suffer ahead of time, but to live with more courage, more presence, and more wisdom. Because the true Stoic isn't the one who expects the best. It's the one who becomes their best, even when the worst happens. Remember that you're going to die. Memento mori. Few phrases carry so much power in so few words. No metaphors, no sugarcoating, just truth. And yet, it holds a timeless wisdom. Memento mori, remember death, is a brutal reminder, but also a liberating one. For the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, there was nothing more essential to living well than remembering every single day that life ends. Death, in Stoic philosophy, wasn't a taboo. It wasn't a monster to avoid or a fear to suppress. It was a teacher, a compass, a mirror for the soul, not because it invites sadness, but because it wakes us up to what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That's not a call to rush. It's a call to be present, a blow against the illusion that we have forever. We live as if we'll never die. We delay dreams, hold grudges, chase ego, and we forget the simplest truth. We are going to die. And that forgetfulness is what makes us fragile, anxious, shallow. When we ignore death, life loses its weight. But when we remember death, everything gains urgency. Every word, every action, every moment becomes meaningful. For Seneca, the awareness of death was a tool for focus. In his famous letter on the shortness of life, he wrote, "Life is long enough for those who know how to use it. The problem," he said, "isn't that life is too short. It's that we waste so much of it. And when death is brought to mind, it acts like a light in a dark room, revealing the time we've been throwing away. It calls us back to what matters." Memento mori isn't about glorifying the end. It's about honoring the now. It reminds us that this hug could be the last. That conversation, the final chance. That ordinary morning, the last sunrise we'll see. And not knowing when the end comes is what makes every moment precious. But there's a key point. The Stoics didn't fear death because they didn't see it as evil. Seneca said calmly, "Death is not an evil. The evil is fearing it." To him, death was natural, just like birth, just like sleep, just like the changing seasons. It doesn't come to steal life, but to complete it. And the only real tragedy isn't dying. It's dying without having truly lived. That's why the Stoic doesn't run from death. He reflects on it. He speaks with it. He keeps it in his pocket like a quiet reminder. Use your time well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time arguing about what a good person should be one." That's what Memento Mori demands. Action, clarity, courage. The awareness of death pushes us to let go of the superficial, petty arguments, pointless fears, constant approval seeking, and to focus our energy on what matters: virtue, connection, presence. And it changes how we relate to the world. Someone who lives with death in mind forgives faster, loves harder, listens deeper, works with more purpose, because they know nothing is guaranteed. The next chance might never come. Time is scarce and therefore sacred. This mindset also humbles us. It crushes ego, because death levels us all. It doesn't care if you're rich, famous, or powerful. It comes, and that reminds us of something essential. We're just passing through, part of something bigger, and so we should live with humility and inner greatness. But be careful, memento mori isn't nihilism. It's not saying nothing matters because it all ends. It's the opposite. It's saying everything matters because it ends. It's not a push toward reckless pleasure, but toward meaningful living. Not an excuse to rush, but a reason to be fully present. The Stoic looks at death and says, "Yes, I know you're coming. That's why today I will live with courage. I'll act with justice. I'll speak with honesty. I'll cherish what matters. Because when you arrive, and you will, I want to be able to say I lived fully." So how do we practice this in everyday life? Remember your mortality daily. When you wake up, tell yourself, today could be my last day. How do I want to live it? Don't waste time on distractions. Every minute is an investment. Spend it wisely. Trade mindless scrolling for presence. Love like you could lose because you could. And love only becomes real when it feels urgent. Forgive quickly. Offenses shrink when you remember how short life is. Choose with awareness. Don't live on autopilot. Live like someone who knows time is limited and wants to honor every second. Memento mori is, at its core, a quiet prayer of the awakened soul. It's the echo of someone who knows the end exists, and for that very reason, chooses to live with intensity, with focus, and with gratitude. We can't make our days longer, but we can fill them with what truly matters. There's something that unites us, and it's not blood, culture, or language, it's reason. The Hellenistic Stoics believed that all human beings, regardless of where they were born, their skin color, social class, or political status, share the same universal reason. This idea, known as the universality of reason, was the foundation of one of Stoicism's most revolutionary principles, cosmopolitanism. Zeno of Citium, the founder of the Stoic school, once said he wasn't a citizen of Athens or even of Cyprus, his homeland. He was a citizen of the world. Cosmu polites, a citizen of the cosmos. Why? Because he believed that every rational being shares in the same essence, the logos. Logos is the divine reason, the rational principle that governs the universe. Everything that exists, the stars, the seasons, nature, the cycles of life, follows a rational order, and we as human beings are part of that order. We carry within us a spark of that reason. It's what gives us the ability to think, make judgments, and act with awareness. And if everyone has access to reason, then everyone has dignity. There is no essential difference between a slave and a king, between a so-called barbarian and a Roman citizen. What makes us equal is not power, but our shared capacity to live according to reason. That's why the Stoics believed that morality is universal. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote, "We are all members of one body. What benefits one part benefits the whole. What harms one part harms the whole." That might sound obvious today, in a world of human rights and global thinking. But in ancient times, this idea was radical. Society was divided, citizens and non-citizens, free and enslaved, Greeks and non-Greeks. And the Stoics said, that's all surface. Deep down, in our reason, we are all the same. The universality of reason invites us to look at others with respect, not with judgment. It teaches us that wisdom can come from anywhere. that virtue isn't a privilege of a specific class or culture, that anyone can choose to live in alignment with their rational nature. All it takes is cultivation. Epictetus, who was born a slave, said, "Don't call me a slave, call me a human, because I have reason, and that makes me free." That statement still resonates today. We still live in a world full of divisions, ideological, social, cultural, religious, but Stoicism doesn't see walls. It sees humanity. It doesn't see labels. It sees the rational soul, and that changes how we treat others. If we all share the same reason, then we all deserve to be treated with justice, respect, and compassion. Not because they're nice to us, but because they are, like us, part of the same rational whole. Reason is the meeting point between the individual and the universe. It allows us to understand the world and also to guide our actions. That's why Stoics believed reason isn't just an intellectual tool, it's a moral compass. When we follow reason, we're not just being logical, we're being virtuous. Seneca, in one of his letters, wrote, "Reason is what connects us to the gods. It makes us part of the universe, not just spectators of it." This idea elevates the human condition. We're not just survivors, we're meaning makers. We're capable of living in harmony because we're made of the same rational matter that orders the cosmos. And what does this mean in practice? It means that when someone suffers anywhere in the world, it matters. It means other people's pain isn't someone else's problem. It's a wound in the body we all belong to. It means we can't ignore injustice, even if it doesn't touch us directly. The Stoic doesn't live only for himself, he lives for the whole. He acts for the common good, because he understands that what's good for one must be good for all. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, what's not good for the hive is not good for the bee. This mindset of rational connection is the heart of Stoic ethics. We don't act rightly because we fear punishment or want rewards. We do it because we're part of something bigger, and that something demands coherence, integrity, responsibility, and that same reason is what allows us to talk, to learn, to grow. It's the antidote to fanaticism, hatred, and intolerance. Because wherever there's reason, there's room for understanding. Wherever there's logos, there's a bridge, not a wall. So the universality of reason isn't just an abstract concept. It's a call to live a philosophical life, a truly human life. It means living as part of humanity, not in opposition to it. It means knowing that even with all our differences, we share something real, and that something has the power to unite us, even in times of division. To the Stoics, reason isn't just what thinks, it's what connects, it's what guides, it's what makes us truly human. You don't just belong to your city, your country, or your culture, you belong to the world. That's the essence of Stoic cosmopolitanism, an idea that's lasted through time and might be more necessary today than ever. For Marcus Aurelius, Cicero, and the entire Stoic tradition, we are citizens of the cosmos. And that universal citizenship calls us to think and act with ethics, awareness, and deep humanity. The word cosmopolitan comes from the Greek cosmos, world, and polites, citizen. To be a citizen of the world, for the Stoics, is to recognize that our deepest identity isn't defined by where we were born, the language we speak, or the flag we wave. Our true identity is rooted in reason and in our shared connection to the rational nature of the universe. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "My true country is the world. Reason is our shared home." That one line carries a heavy truth. It cuts through man-made borders and reminds us that at our core, we're all part of the same moral community. So what's behind this idea? Stoicism starts with the belief that the universe is governed by a rational order, the logos, and every human being shares in that reason. That means all of us, regardless of culture, color, religion, or status, are equal in dignity. Cicero, the great Roman orator influenced by Stoicism, wrote in On the Republic, The true law is right reason in agreement with nature, spread among all people, constant and eternal. For him, this natural and rational law doesn't change from place to place. It's universal. And because of that, justice isn't relative. Ethics isn't a matter of local customs. What's right is right everywhere, because the reason behind it is the same in all of us. This is the foundation of Stoic cosmopolitanism, universal ethics. Living with justice, compassion, honesty, and courage isn't just something we owe to our own people. It's something we owe to everyone, because in the end, we're all brothers and sisters in reason. So what does that mean practically? It means you can't ignore someone's suffering just because they live far away. It means that injustice against any person, anywhere in the world, concerns you too. It means that morality doesn't stop at national borders. It goes beyond patriotism, beyond tribe, beyond ideology. Marcus Aurelius drives this point home when he writes, "What isn't good for the hive isn't good for the bee." That metaphor says it all. Individual well-being can't exist without collective well-being. A Stoic lives with a deep sense of belonging to the whole and acts with the common good in mind, even when it means giving up personal comfort. Cosmopolitanism also demands humility. It reminds us that we're not the center of the universe, that our beliefs aren't absolute, that there's wisdom in other cultures, virtue in other people, and beauty in other ways of life. A true Stoic doesn't live inside a bubble. They observe the world with respect, learn from difference, and search for what connects rather than what divides. This doesn't mean abandoning your local identity. It means expanding it. To be cosmopolitan is to know you can love your hometown and still feel compassion for someone on the other side of the planet. It's understanding that suffering doesn't carry a passport and that justice doesn't recognize borders. And today, this view couldn't be more urgent. We live in a hyper-connected world that's also deeply fragmented. Polarization, toxic, nationalism, rising intolerance. We're digital neighbors, but emotionally distant. Stoic cosmopolitanism calls us back to something essential: shared humanity. Epictetus once said, "Don't say you're from this or that city, say you're a citizen of the world." That's not an ideological statement, it's a moral one. It's a call to see every human being as a reflection of yourself, a challenge to act with empathy, even when someone is different, a push to extend justice beyond your immediate circle, and that starts from within. When we stop thinking in terms of us versus them, when we avoid generalizations that dehumanize, when we practice reminding ourselves, that person who annoys me, who disagrees with me, who comes from a different place, they too are driven by reason. They too feel pain. They too are seeking meaning. That's the mindset that builds bridges where the world wants to build walls. Stoic cosmopolitanism is, at its core, a practice of universal justice and empathy. It's not utopia, it's direction. It's an ideal that guides us when ego, fear, or pride pull us toward division. In a world that urges us to close off, the Stoic chooses to open up. They live with a sense of global community. They don't ignore distant suffering. They don't reduce anyone's worth to where they're from, because they know we're all citizens of the same universe. And in the court of reason, there are no borders, only the awareness that every human being everywhere shares the same rational breath that makes us family. Would you still do the right thing if no one was watching? If no one clapped for you? If instead you were criticized, rejected, or punished for it? For Epictetus, that was the true measure of a free soul. A real Stoic isn't driven by rewards. They act according to reason and virtue. That means one thing very clearly: doing what's right, no matter the consequences. It sounds simple, but it goes directly against the logic we're used to in society. A logic of trade, expectations, and self-interest. Most people do good because they want recognition, because they expect something in return. because they believe doing the right thing will bring success, love, or stability. But what if it doesn't? Epictetus said, "Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Want them to happen as they do, and you'll find peace. And that peace only comes when your behavior isn't tied to the outcome. When doing the right thing is enough by itself. When your integrity is non-negotiable, even if the world doesn't recognize it. A Stoic doesn't do good to look good. They do good because it is good. They understand that the only thing truly under their control is their will, their intention, and their action. The rest, the results, the reactions, the consequences, belong to the flow of the universe. Depending on them to do the right thing means putting virtue on a leash held by vanity. Epictetus teaches, your job is to act with integrity. Whether it succeeds or fails is not up to you. That truth is freeing. It pulls you out of the trap of seeking external approval. It ends the anxiety to please everyone, the fear of messing up, the obsession with outcomes. And it gives you something powerful back, moral autonomy. You act with integrity because it's the right thing to do. But don't get it twisted. It's not easy. It requires facing the fear of losing, the fear of being unnoticed, the fear of paying a price for doing what's right. But for a Stoic, the greatest failure isn't to lose, it's to betray your own conscience. Imagine witnessing something unjust. You could stay quiet, protect your status, stay neutral, or you could act, knowing it might cost you. What would you do? Epictetus would say, do the right thing. The rest isn't up to you. Because if you know what's right and choose silence, you've already lost. Even if you walk away untouched, you've compromised your soul. This mindset is demanding, but it's also deeply liberating. It frees you from the need for applause, from constantly needing to be accepted, from the emotional blackmail of a world that says, we only value you if you please us. A Stoic doesn't bow to that. They stay loyal to reason, not to popularity. Seneca, another Stoic master, said, virtue's reward is virtue itself. There's no greater prize than laying your head down at night with a clear conscience, knowing you didn't sell out, didn't fold, didn't betray what's right. So how can you build that kind of moral courage in your everyday life? Know your principles. Ask yourself, what do I stand for, no matter what the world says? If you don't know your values, you'll be easily pulled by the crowd. Prepare for the consequences. Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of possible misfortunes. They knew doing what's right could be costly, and still chose virtue anyway. Focus on what you can control. You can't control others' opinions, but you can control whether you act with honesty, justice, and courage. Hold tight to that. Aim for inner consistency. Living by your values brings a peace that no external reward can match. Don't act for rewards. Doing good just to gain something is still living under the rule of vanity. Do good because it's enough by itself. A true Stoic is someone who does what's right, even when no one's watching, even when everything is against them, even when it costs them something, because they know the soul is worth more than any temporary gain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it's within your power, why be afraid? If it's not, why worry? That thinking fits perfectly here. You can act with virtue, but you can't control how the world reacts. So why let your actions depend on what's out of your hands? That attitude is radical in any era. In a world that measures everything in likes, outcomes, and rewards, the Stoic says, my measure is justice, my guide is reason, my goal is integrity. And that changes everything. It gives your spirit back its power. It turns your life into an act of loyalty, not to others, but to yourself. Epictetus believed that every human carries a divine spark, reason, and that spark lets us live with dignity, even in hardship. It's not what happens to you that defines you, but how you choose to respond. Doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when no one claps, is what he would call true freedom. Right action, without attachment to the outcome. Brave choices, with no guarantee of success. Integrity, even when you stand alone. That's the Stoic path. Nothing lasts. Everything is in constant motion. That was the thought Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, repeated to himself in moments of triumph and in times of loss. The impermanence of things, people, and situations, far from being a reason for sadness, was to him a source of wisdom. In Stoic philosophy, understanding that everything is temporary is a powerful key to inner freedom. If everything passes, then there's no sense in clinging to what can't stay. If everything changes, then pain comes when we expect things to remain the same. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Always observe how everything is constantly changing, and get used to the idea that the universe loves nothing more than to transform what exists." These words aren't just poetic, they're soul training. The Stoic contemplates impermanence not with sadness, but with clarity. They see that time never stops. People come and go. Youth fades, success fades, bodies age. Even our deepest feelings will one day dissolve. And that's exactly why they learn not to cling. But let's be clear, not clinging doesn't mean not loving. The Stoic loves deeply. They love their children, their friends, their life. But they love with awareness. They love knowing everything is temporary. They love like someone who knows time is a loan, not a possession. And that's where the beauty lies. When we know something can disappear, we start to cherish it more. Presence becomes deeper. Gratitude grows stronger. Each moment becomes sacred. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this when he said, "You may not see this man again tomorrow. Love him as if it were the last time. Treat every meeting as if it were your last." This thought is a subtle but powerful reminder. Impermanence shouldn't paralyze us. It should awaken us. It frees us from the illusion of control. It breaks the chains of blind attachment. And it teaches us to live with more presence, because attachment is born from the illusion of permanence. We want good moments to last forever. We want to freeze relationships, pleasure, youth, and comfort. But everything slips away, and the more we try to hold on to what's fluid, the more we suffer. The Stoic accepts change as the essence of life. They don't fight time, they walk with it. They don't cling to what can't be held. They embrace what is while it lasts. Seneca, in line with Marcus Aurelius, wrote, "Only what has no end is worthy of attachment, and nothing human fits that." That's not a call to cynicism, it's a call to sobriety. If everything external is fleeting, then the only real stability lies within. Virtue, reason, integrity. These are the true riches that don't fade, that don't age, that don't dissolve with time. Contemplating impermanence, then, is a kind of purification. It's a philosophical exercise to cleanse the soul of what's superficial. How often do we suffer over things that don't matter? A criticism, a lost item, a moment of rejection. But if it's all going to pass, why give it so much power? Marcus Aurelius invites us to take a broader view, to see life as a constant flow, to remember that every pain, every joy, every achievement is just one part of something much bigger. He writes, "All that is material flows away like a river. All fame fades with time. The only thing that belongs to us is to live wisely, here and now." That wisdom changes how we deal with loss, because loss is part of existence. Losing people, phases of life, opportunities. But when we accept that nothing truly belongs to us, not even our own bodies, grief transforms. The pain doesn't disappear, but it doesn't destroy us either. The Stoic cries, yes, but they don't fall apart. They feel, but they don't drown, because they know loss is natural, and that excessive attachment is a prison. So how can we practice this mindset in everyday life? See everything as temporary, because it is. Where you live, the people around you, the phase of life you're in, it will all pass. Appreciate it, but don't cling to it. Don't build your identity on what changes. Your looks, your status, your reputation, none of it is stable. Build on what's internal, values, virtue, wisdom. Accept change as a sign of life. If everything is flowing, it means everything is alive. Rigidity is death. Flexibility is freedom. Remind yourself daily of impermanence, not as someone waiting for the end, but as someone living with more presence and reverence for each passing moment. Contemplating impermanence is the opposite of apathy. It gives depth to life. It turns each encounter into a miracle, each breath into a gift, each small gesture into a fleeting eternity. The world changes, people change, our bodies change. But what doesn't change, what can grow within us despite everything, is awareness, serenity, the courage to live well, knowing everything passes. Because in the end, it's that awareness that sets us free. We don't have to hold on to everything. We just have to be present while it's with us. That's the Stoics' view. And that's what Marcus Aurelius invites us to cultivate every single day. It's not events that upset us. It's our judgment about them. Epictetus, this simple yet powerful phrase, is one of the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy. It invites us to look inward instead of pointing fingers outward. It reminds us that it's not the world that destroys us. It's how we interpret it that causes harm. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest philosophers in history, taught that emotional suffering rarely comes from reality itself, but from the meaning we assign to events. Reality just happens. It's not good or bad on its own. What makes it unbearable or manageable, offensive or neutral, devastating or useful, is how we judge it. The key to Stoic freedom lies in exactly that, learning to suspend judgment. The tragedy, often, isn't in what happens, it's in how quickly we label what happens. We get criticized and instantly think, I was humiliated. We lose something and say, that's unfair. Someone pulls away and we assume, I'm being rejected. But are we sure? Epictetus said, don't say, I've been wronged. Just say, someone said something. It's up to you to decide whether that's an offense. The power to choose lies between the experience and our reaction. Between what happens and what we feel, there's a space. And in that space lives our freedom. If we react automatically, we become slaves to our emotions. But if we learn to pause and observe before judging, we gain power over ourselves. And this isn't just abstract philosophy. It's a way of life. Imagine you just lost your job. Most people would react with panic, anger, or sadness. But a trained Stoic would ask, what actually happened? I was laid off. Is that in itself bad? No, it's just a fact. It's my judgment that makes it good or bad. This mindset doesn't ignore reality. It faces it with clarity. Avoiding snap judgments isn't about denying your feelings. It's about understanding that feelings come from thoughts. And if we want more peace, we have to question what we're thinking, especially how we're labeling what happens to us. Seneca said, nothing is so bad if well understood, and nothing so good that it can't be misunderstood. That's a golden insight, because so often our deepest suffering is mental. It comes from twisted interpretations, rushed conclusions, and stories we make up about what others did or said. The human mind loves to fill in the blanks. We don't know what someone else meant, but we assume. We don't hear the full story, but we judge. We don't understand the context, but we decide we know the truth. And this puts us in conflict not just with others, but with ourselves. When we judge too quickly, we create unnecessary inner storms. We waste energy on resentments that may not even be real. We get caught in drama that could have been avoided if we had just observed before reacting. Epictetus taught his students to pause between stimulus and response. He said, "When something bothers you, don't say, 'This is bad.' Say, 'This is a part of my experience.' Only afterward, with reason, decide how to respond." That pause is where wisdom begins. It allows us to ask, am I seeing the facts or just my thoughts about them? Is this emotion based on reality or interpretation? Am I reacting or consciously choosing my response? Avoiding snap judgments also helps us live with more compassion. How many times have you judged someone for how they looked, a single action, or one mistake, and later found out the story was completely different, that there was pain, fear, or a hidden struggle behind it? Snap judgments are poison, not just for the soul, but for our relationships. The Stoic knows that first impressions are just reactions, not truth. They see, but don't rush to conclusions. They feel, but don't follow every emotion blindly. They think, but also question their own thoughts. Because they know we can't trust our first read of reality as absolute. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic, wrote in his Meditations, "Remove your opinion, and the complaint is gone." The event itself isn't the problem. It's your judgment that makes it one. This is more than just a technique for emotional control. It's a life philosophy rooted in clarity. Because when we learn to observe events without rushing, to label them, we create space for reason, for virtue, and for inner peace. And how can we practice this day to day? 1. Train the pause. Whenever something triggers a strong emotion, breathe. Don't label it right away. Just observe. Question your thoughts. Is this a fact or an interpretation? Is this conclusion rational or emotional? What other possible explanations are there? Revisit past judgments. Think of times when you misjudged someone or something, and reality later proved otherwise. Use that as a reminder that your first take might be wrong. Be generous in uncertainty. When you're not sure, try to interpret things more compassionately. It reduces unnecessary conflict and brings more peace. Avoiding snap judgments isn't weakness. It's strength. The strength of someone who refuses to be rushed. The courage to understand before reacting. The clarity to govern the mind instead of letting it run wild. Epictetus understood. We're not victims of the world. We're victims of the stories we tell ourselves about it. And when we change the story, we change our experience. Because, in the end, it's not what happens to us that shapes us. It's how we choose to see what happens. Nothing belongs to us, except time. Seneca. This sentence captures the essence of Stoic philosophical humility. Simple, direct, undeniable. Everything we think we own, possessions, status, power, health, even the people around us, doesn't truly belong to us. All of it can be taken away in an instant, except time, and even that, only while we still have it. Seneca, a Roman philosopher, advisor to emperors, and witness to the moral decay of his era's elite, saw this with absolute clarity. Arrogance is born from the illusion of permanence. We think what we have today will still be here tomorrow. We act like we control our future, like we're invincible, immune to change, and we forget that we're just passing through. Philosophical humility begins when we understand our limits. We're not gods. We can't control tomorrow. We can't even guarantee we'll be alive next week. And yet, so many people live as if they're eternal, wasting time like it's infinite, treating others like they'll always be there, delaying life, chasing status, accumulating things they can't take with them. Seneca said, "We live as if we're going to die of old age, but we die as if we barely lived." Stoicism brings us back to reality. And reality is simple. We are limited. We are fragile. We are temporary. But it's by recognizing that we begin to live with wisdom. Philosophical humility is not self-deprecation. It's not weakness. It's not submission. It's clarity. It's being able to look in the mirror and say, I am a moment in time, a fleeting part of the flow of life, and everything I have can be gone tomorrow. That's why nothing is truly ours except time. Time is the only thing we really own while we're alive. It's the one resource that, once spent, never comes back. And yet, it's what we waste the most. Seneca wrote with frustration, "People carefully guard their possessions, but throw away their time as if it were endless." He saw people busy with everything, except what truly mattered. Busy trying to impress, win, argue, consume, but forgetting to truly live. Because living with wisdom means pausing to ask, what actually matters? That's where the second layer of philosophical humility comes in. Awareness of life's impermanence. Everything changes. Everything fades. Everything is temporary. Youth, strength, beauty, jobs, possessions, even our most vivid memories will one day disappear. But to a Stoic, this isn't something to mourn. It's something that sets us free. If nothing lasts forever, why cling so tightly? Why obsess over recognition? Why get lost in vanity and comparison? Humility arises when we realize that everything we have is on loan. It was given to us and will be taken back. Marcus Aurelius echoed this in his Meditations. You are a soul carrying a corpse, and everything you value now will soon be dust. These words may sound harsh, but they're a necessary reminder. Life is brief, time is short, and pride, that blind giant, is built on sand. Humility, then, becomes the fertile ground of wisdom. It allows us to listen, to learn, to grow. The arrogant believe they already know everything. The humble know there's always more to discover. And, to Seneca, this spirit of lifelong learning is what made a true philosopher. He said, "We keep learning until our last breath, and anyone who thinks they've learned it all has closed the doors of their soul." Philosophical humility also teaches us to respect others, because when we see our own limits, we understand theirs too. No one is perfect. We're all just passing through. That makes us less judgmental, more compassionate, and more careful with pride, that quiet poison that separates people. So what does this look like in practice? Be grateful for what you have, knowing it could be gone. Real gratitude doesn't come from ownership, but from knowing it's temporary. Don't get carried away by success. Success is always fleeting. What matters is the virtue with which you handle it. Accept criticism without anger. A Stoic listens, even when it stings. There's always room to grow. Live with urgency, not with haste. Treat time like a treasure. Choose what deserves your energy. Say no to distractions. Reflect on your actions daily. Humility begins when we admit we're still a work in progress. Philosophical humility is an antidote to ego. It stops us from falling into the trap of thinking we're in total control. It keeps us grounded when we're praised and steady when we're criticized, because it reminds us time is our most precious and most fragile possession. Seneca lived this. Even surrounded by wealth, power, and influence, he understood. None of that really mattered. The real stage was inside. The true performance was in one's character. And the real judge was time. You complain that life is short. It's only short if you waste it. Seneca said that, and with it, he challenges us. It's not enough to live. We must live well, with simplicity, with focus, with virtue, and most of all, with humility in the face of existence. Reason doesn't exist just to understand the world. It exists above all to guide us through it. That's one of the central ideas of Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. For him, reason wasn't just a logical tool, it was a moral compass. It didn't just help us explain the world around us, but also helped us navigate our actions, our decisions, and our ethical lives. Stoic thinking begins with a deep belief: the universe is rational. Everything that exists follows an order, a structure, a harmony, what the Greeks called logos. And we, as human beings, are part of that ordered cosmos. Within us is a spark of that same rational principle that governs everything, and it's to that inner spark that we must stay true. To live well, according to Zeno, is to live according to reason. Not cold, mathematical, lifeless reason, but reason that understands, that reflects, that seeks what's good. Reason that sees life clearly and acts with integrity. Zeno believed reason is what sets us apart from all other creatures. While animals follow instinct, we have the power to pause and think before acting. To evaluate what's just, what's useful, what's virtuous. That's why, he said, we're not only called to think, but to live rationally. This is a radical shift in perspective. In modern life, we mostly use reason to look outward, to solve problems, build technology, make plans. But for the Stoics, reason's highest function wasn't to conquer the world, it was to conquer ourselves. Reason must rule like a master over the body and desires, leading the soul to virtue. Zeno, that's the Stoic ideal. A life guided by clarity. A life where every decision is thought through, every emotion is understood, and every reaction is evaluated under the light of reason. So what does this look like in real life? It means, for example, not acting on anger just because we feel it. Reason asks, is this fair? Is it helpful? Does this support harmony? If the answer is no, we hold back. It means not chasing every desire just because it appears. Reason steps in. Is this aligned with virtue? Or is it ego, vanity, or attachment? If it's the latter, we let it go. Stoic reason isn't about repression, it's about freedom. It doesn't deny emotions, it helps us understand them. It doesn't block life, it gives it direction. It says, feel what you feel, but act wisely. That's why the Stoics placed reason at the center of ethical behavior. Because only reason can turn an impulse into a choice. Only reason can tell real joy from addictive pleasure. Only reason can turn freedom into something internal. Not just doing whatever we want, but doing what's right. Stoic ethics don't rely on external rules. They're not based on law or tradition, but on universal principles that reason can uncover and follow. That's why virtue in Stoicism is available to anyone, rich or poor, educated or not, Greek or barbarian. If you have reason, you have the power to live well. Zeno believed that true happiness, eudaimonia, is only possible when life is in harmony with reason. There's no lasting joy in inner chaos. There's no peace where there's a split between what we think and what we do. And that applies to everything. How we eat, how we speak, how we work, how we love. In every part of life, reason can and should be our guide. Not like a harsh judge, but like a gentle teacher, like someone reminding us always of the path of integrity. But why is this so hard? Because we're constantly pulled away from reason by wild emotions, fleeting desires, fear, anger, pride. Reason is quiet. Passion is loud. Reason is patient. Impulse is impulsive. That's why living rationally takes discipline. It takes watching our own thoughts. It takes humility to admit when we're wrong. And most of all, it takes courage to do what's right, even when the whole world tells us not to. Zeno said, reason is like the rudder of a ship, invisible but essential to stay on course. Without it, we drift with the currents. We react randomly, we get lost, but with it, even in the middle of the storm, we stay on track. So how do we develop reason as an ethical guide? 1. Examine your intentions. Before acting, ask, why am I doing this? What's my real motive? If the answer is pride, fear, or blind desire, Think again. Reflect on your behavior. At the end of the day, ask, was I guided by reason today or by emotion? This kind of reflection is the first step to real change. Study virtue. Understand what justice, courage, self-control, and wisdom are. Then look for ways to apply them to your everyday decisions. Practice mindfulness. Reason needs quiet. To work, it needs space. It needs a pause. Being present is key to making good choices. Reason is our most precious resource, and for Zeno, it wasn't given to us just to solve problems, but to help us live with dignity. When we act with reason, we live with coherence. When we live with coherence, we become whole. And when we're whole, we are truly free. Because, Zeno taught, true freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's wanting what's right and having the strength to live up to it. Everything we have is only borrowed. Epictetus. Most people live as if they own the world, their body, their possessions, the people around them, even time itself. But the Stoics, especially Epictetus, offer us a powerful reminder. None of it truly belongs to us. Everything we have is in the end temporary. That's why we need to train ourselves in detachment. The Stoic doesn't preach cold indifference. He doesn't reject love, beauty, or material things. He values them, but without clinging, because he understands that everything life gives, life can also take away. And when that moment comes, what protects us from emotional collapse isn't ownership. It's the inner readiness to let go. Epictetus said, "Never say about anything, 'I lost it.' Say instead, 'I gave it back.'" This teaching isn't easy, but it's freeing. It invites us to change our relationship with everything around us. Instead of attachment, momentary gratitude. Instead of possessiveness, conscious presence. Instead of fear of loss, peaceful acceptance. The problem isn't having things. The problem is thinking they'll last forever. You have a body, but it ages, gets sick, and eventually fades. You have a friend, a child, a partner, but they are free, impermanent, and bound to time. You have wealth, status, comfort, but all of that can vanish overnight. Epictetus understood this better than most. He had been a slave. His freedom, dignity, and comfort were taken from him by force, and yet he found freedom in the one place no one else was looking, within himself. Detachment, for Epictetus, is not escape. It's strength, the strength to love without becoming a prisoner, to have without clinging, to live fully, but without illusions. Remember that you are an actor in a play. You don't get to choose the role, only to play it as best you can. This metaphor is central to Epictetus's philosophy. We're on stage for a while. Life gives us roles: parent, friend, leader, student. It gives us things: health, relationships, talents, resources. But eventually the director says, "Cut," and everything must be returned. Attachment comes from the illusion that we control the script. Detachment comes from the wisdom of playing our part well and exiting with grace. So how do we practice this? How do we love without clinging? Own without becoming owned? Epictetus suggests a brave exercise: visualizing loss. He advises, when hugging your child, remember they are mortal. When enjoying a possession, remember it could be taken away. When spending time with someone, remember time is uncertain. That's not pessimism. It's clear-eyed gratitude. It's loving with awareness. It's living deeply, because everything is temporary, and that's what makes it precious. Seneca echoed this in his letters. Nothing is truly ours except time. Everything else is unstable possession. When you train in detachment, something interesting happens. You actually enjoy things more. You become more present. You stop putting off words, actions, or choices. because you understand that life can change at any moment. Detachment also protects us from unnecessary pain, because suffering doesn't only come from loss, it comes from resisting loss. When we think something is ours, we fight against the natural flow of life. We try to control the uncontrollable, and when we can't, we feel bitter, angry, and broken. But the Stoic, trained in detachment, takes a deep breath and says, "I knew this moment would come. I'm ready to give it back." And this applies not just to big things, but to everyday life. When you lose something you care about, when plans fall through, when someone distances themselves without explanation, when you age and your body begins to change. All of these are chances to practice detachment, to remember nothing is guaranteed, nothing is fixed, nothing truly belongs to us, except our attitude toward what happens. Epictetus said, "What disturbs you is not the loss, it's the attachment." And that attachment is in the mind. It comes from identification. We think we are what we own, that our happiness depends on things. But Stoicism flips that logic. You are what remains when everything is taken away. You are your reason, your virtue, your inner freedom. Everything else comes and goes. Detachment doesn't mean you don't feel. The Stoic feels, but doesn't fall apart. He loves, but accepts endings. He cares, but doesn't cling. And when loss comes, he greets it with the same calm he welcomed the gain, because he knows everything is borrowed, and life, like a gracious host, will one day ask for it back. If we're ready, we'll give it up with gratitude. If we're attached, we'll fight the inevitable and suffer for it. Detachment is the path to freedom. Not freedom from owning, but freedom from depending. Freedom from being at the mercy of what's outside us. The freedom to say, I had, I loved, I lost, and I'm still whole. Desire is part of being human. From an early age, we want things: affection, acceptance, pleasure, safety, recognition. Desire moves us and often traps us. But for the Stoics, the problem isn't desire itself. The problem is misguided desire. The problem is tying our happiness to things we don't control, chasing temporary stuff, or getting caught in fantasies that enslave us. So the Stoic solution isn't to kill desire, it's to educate it, to train it, to refine it, to redirect it toward what's truly good, lasting, and stable: virtue. Epictetus, with his usual blunt clarity, said, "Don't wish for what's easy or pleasant, wish to be free." And freedom means wanting only what is within your control. This challenges us to look at desire more maturely. How often are we driven by blind wants? We crave fame and become slaves to others' opinions. We chase money and live in constant anxiety. We seek pleasure and lose control of our body, impulses, and mind. Untrained desire is chaotic. It promises happiness, but delivers restlessness. It makes us chase the world, while leaving our soul behind. That's why Stoics didn't try to erase desire, like some ascetic traditions, but to transform it. Philosophy doesn't eliminate desires, it redirects them. Seneca. But how do we educate desire? It starts with understanding what's actually worth wanting. The Stoics taught that the only truly good thing is virtue, living with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control. Everything else, health, beauty, wealth, status praised as indifferent. They can be used well, but they're not the foundation of happiness. So to desire them as if they were ultimate goals is a mistake. Desire needs to be retrained to chase what we can control. And what's within our control? Our actions, our choices, our character, our response to the world. Desire to be just, even if the world doesn't notice. Desire to be brave, even in the face of fear. Desire to be wise, even if it requires sacrifice. That's the kind of desire Stoicism encourages, wanting only what depends on you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let your joy come from doing what is right. Everything else is just distraction." Educating desire also requires self-knowledge. Most people desire by imitation. They want what others want. They chase things they were taught to want, not what they've truly reflected on. How many dreams are inherited? How many goals are imposed? How many desires are just masks for insecurity, loneliness, or ego? The Stoic asks, why do I want this? What am I really hoping to get from it? Does this desire bring me closer to freedom or further from it? Educating desire is daily work. It requires watching your thoughts, questioning impulses, training your mind not to react to every stimulus. Epictetus advised, when you notice a desire rising, don't fight it like an enemy. Talk to it like a teacher. Ask what it's really after. Show it a better path. This inner dialogue transforms desire. It stops being raw instinct and becomes a focused energy. Because desire has power, it's a driving force. But like a river, it can carry you to freedom or sweep you away. Training desire also protects you from frustration. When you desire things you can't control, you suffer. But when your desires align with reason, frustration loses its power. You can desire to act with integrity. That's up to you. You can desire to keep your inner peace. That's up to you. You can desire to stay true to your values. That's up to you. If the world cooperates, great. If it doesn't, you can still live with dignity. That's the Stoic secret. Only desire what life can't take away. So what does this look like in real life? Be honest about your desires. Ask yourself several times a day, is this a real desire or just a distraction? Redirect your goals toward virtue, not outcomes. Instead of, I want a promotion, say, I want to act with excellence. Instead of, I want to be admired, say, I want to be honest. Practice contentment. Desire less and desire better. It's not about killing ambition. It's about having ambition with ethics. Commit to the ongoing practice. Desire doesn't get tamed overnight. It's like a wild horse. It needs patience, training, and guidance. The Stoics weren't cold. They were conscious. They knew desire is powerful, and that if trained, it can serve virtue. We can desire wisdom. We can desire to become better. We can desire to act with courage and decency, even in dark times. Desire, when educated, becomes inner freedom. You don't have to be a monk. You don't have to give everything up. You just have to put desire in the right place. Not serving the ego, but serving reason. Not chasing pleasure, but seeking meaning. Not as an end, but as a bridge to what truly matters. Because in the end, a free soul isn't one that doesn't desire. It's one that only desires what depends on itself. Philosophy isn't about speaking well. It's about living well. Seneca. The sentence is short, but it delivers a direct hit to the ego of the intellectual world, because Seneca, a Roman senator, writer, and one of the greatest voices of Stoicism, wasn't interested in fancy speeches or empty debates. For him, philosophy that doesn't change the way we live is just a performance for vanity. And this criticism wasn't only for his time. It cuts across centuries and hits right at our modern age, where knowledge is often mistaken for wisdom, and sounding smart can seem more important than living with integrity. Seneca saw it clearly. There's a huge gap between knowing what virtue is and actually living it. Talking about patience doesn't make you patient. Quoting courage doesn't make you brave. Explaining humility doesn't mean you live humbly. Virtue isn't theory, it's practice. That was the constant message of Stoic philosophy, and that's what makes Stoicism such a powerful ethical school. It demands action. It doesn't just want you to understand ideas, it wants you to live them. It wants you to turn wisdom into behavior. To ask yourself daily, what am I doing with what I know? Am I applying what I've learned in the way I treat others? What does my routine say about my character? Seneca didn't hold back when criticizing philosophers who preached virtue but lived carelessly. He wrote, "Many talk about freedom, but are slaves to money, ambition, and pleasure. Some praise courage, but shake at the thought of public opinion. Others exalt self-control, but give in to food and lust." For him, this wasn't just hypocrisy, it was self-betrayal. Because knowing virtue without practicing it isn't just useless, it's dangerous. It's like knowing the cure and choosing poison anyway. That's why the true Stoic is someone who lives what they preach, even in silence, even when no one is watching, even when they mess up, but keep trying to get better. For the Stoics, philosophy is a form of soul training. It's not a decoration, it's a discipline. It's not to show superiority, it's to grow in integrity. Let your actions show what your words claim. Seneca. That line is both an invitation and a challenge. How often do we say we want wisdom, but keep habits that harm us? How often do we talk about living with purpose, but drown in distractions? How often do we praise virtue, then choose comfort instead? Stoicism teaches that wisdom doesn't lie in being perfect. It lies in constantly striving to do what's right. Virtue is action, it's habit, it's repetition, it's building, day by day, a life that reflects what you know is right. Seneca understood this deeply. And even though he was surrounded by power and luxury, he knew that real wealth was acting with honor, even when it cost something. That's why he said, "It's better to practice philosophy than to just know it." And that changes everything, because it pulls us out of the comfort zone of admiring ideas and throws us into the fire of real life. It forces us to ask ourselves every day, did I live according to my principles today? Was I fair even when it was hard? Did I stay strong in the face of temptation? Was I patient in the face of adversity? These questions aren't meant to punish us, they're meant to align us. Because virtue is like a compass. It doesn't stop you from drifting, but it always brings you back to true north. So, what does it mean to live with virtue? For the Stoics, it means living by the four core virtues. Wisdom, to know right from wrong. Justice, to treat everyone fairly. Courage, to do what's right, even when afraid. Temperance, to stay balanced in both pleasure and pain, and these virtues don't come from theory. They're born in the friction of real life, in the tough conversation you choose to have with respect, in the hard decision you make with courage, in the temptation you overcome with self-restraint, in the judgment you hold back from out of fairness. Virtue is living well, not just talking about it, and that takes practice. It takes humility. It takes consistency. You don't become virtuous all at once, but with every small decision, every reaction you change, every impulse you resist, you move closer. It's like strengthening a muscle at the gym. The soul needs training too. Virtue is the soul's muscle, and it only grows through effort. Seneca invites us to that effort, to be less scholarly and more ethical, to be less eloquent and more consistent, to live in a way that teaches others by example, even if they never hear a word we say. You've lost nothing that was truly yours. Marcus Aurelius. This quote from Marcus Aurelius isn't cheap comfort. It's a philosophical blade. It cuts through attachment, the illusion of ownership, and invites us to a deeper understanding of loss. Because in Stoicism, loss isn't a mistake. It's part of the natural order of life, and resisting that order is resisting life itself. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, but he was also a man deeply aware of how fragile everything is. He lost friends, children, fellow soldiers. He lost his youth, his health, his peace, and still he wrote in Meditations, "Everything that comes into the world is loaned to us. When nature takes it back, there's no reason to complain." That's the view of a true Stoic, clear-eyed, mature, courageous. Loss is part of life. All of us, sooner or later, will lose something, or someone, a loved one, a chapter of life, a dream that never came true, a stability that fell apart. But for a Stoic, loss only hurts deeply when we convince ourselves that what we lost actually belonged to us. That's the illusion Marcus Aurelius invites us to break. Nothing really belongs to us, not people, not possessions, not even our own bodies. Everything is loaned to us for a time. Everything is borrowed from nature. And when the time comes to give it back, the wise don't resist, not because they don't feel, but because they understand. You were born to lose, and that's not a tragedy, as long as you know what really matters. Marcus Aurelius, accepting loss doesn't mean becoming cold. It's not indifference, it's not numbness, it's maturity. It means understanding that if what we lost wasn't under our control, then it was never truly part of us. In Stoicism, the only thing that truly belongs to us is one thing: our character, our choices, our virtue. Everything else, even our children, spouses, friendships, reputation, are external things. They aren't really ours. That might sound harsh at first, but look at what this mindset gives us: freedom, peace in the face of change, strength in the face of pain, because the pain of loss is inevitable. But the suffering caused by resistance, that can be avoided. Seneca said, "What is common to nature cannot be misfortune. What happens to everyone is not tragedy, it is destiny." Seeing loss in this way takes inner training. The human mind tends to cling. It says, "This is mine. This will last forever. This can't end." But life always answers. Everything changes. Everything passes. Everything transforms. So the Stoic asks, how can I live well, even through loss? How can I face loss without breaking inside? How can I accept what I cannot control? Marcus Aurelius didn't preach passive resignation. He didn't say to just accept things blindly. He taught us to accept consciously, to understand that nature reclaims what it gives in its own time, for its own reasons. You were made to live in harmony with reason. And reason shows you that loss is part of life, not as punishment, but as passage. Marcus Aurelius accepting loss also reveals the Stoic view of love. Because Stoic love isn't possession, it's presence. It's respect for the time you shared. It's gratitude for the moment, not an illusion of forever. Epictetus said, "When you kiss your child, say to yourself, tomorrow they may die." Not to love them less, but to love them more consciously. That might sound strange today, in a world so focused on control, security, and guaranteeing the future, but the Stoics point us to a deeper truth. What you lose reveals what really matters. If you lose something and fall apart completely, maybe you had tied your identity to it. But if, even in pain, you stay grounded in your values, your virtue, your clarity, then you're anchored in something loss can't touch. Accepting loss also invites us to live more fully in the present, because when you know that nothing is guaranteed, you learn to value everything more, to love more, forgive more, let go of pride, to stop putting life off for later. Marcus Aurelius knew, life is short, and everything we have, we're just borrowing. But while it's with us, it's our duty to live with dignity, gratitude, and calm. And when the time comes to let go, let it be like the wise, with love for what was, with peace for having lived it well, and with courage to move on lightly. You haven't lost anything that was truly yours. What's truly yours? Your soul, your virtue, your inner freedom. No loss can ever take that away. Philosophy is the medicine of the soul. Seneca. This is one of the most powerful images in Stoicism. Philosophy as healing, not just abstract theory or elegant speech, but actual medicine. Medicine for anger, for envy, for fear, for the anxiety that paralyzes us and eats us from the inside out. Seneca saw the human being as a traveler wounded by existence, wounded by wild desires, by emotions that hijack our minds, by the false promises of the world. And it's in the face of this fragile, sick condition of the soul that philosophy steps in, not as decoration, but as therapy. Just as doctors care for the body, philosophers must care for the spirit. Seneca. But what does it mean to heal the soul? It means, first, admitting that we're unwell. We live in an age of chronic anxiety, inflated egos, and buried resentment. The human spirit is inflamed, and that inflammation comes from inner disorder. We crave what we shouldn't. We fear what we don't need to fear. We get angry over things we can't control, and we suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because we haven't learned how to live. Seneca said, "Most of human misery comes from not knowing what should be desired and what should be avoided." In other words, suffering is often a symptom of an untrained soul, and this is where philosophy steps in, not as some intellectual luxury, but as daily treatment, as self-examination, as a moral diet, as a spiritual workout. Stoic philosophy is preventative medicine. It doesn't wait for the crisis. It prepares for it. It strengthens the soul before the storm comes. And when the storm does come, because it always does, the trained spirit doesn't collapse. No one is more miserable than the person who's never been tested. Seneca, that's the key. Philosophy doesn't promise to eliminate suffering. It promises to make us stronger in the face of it. It gives us the tools to endure pain without becoming bitter, to face loss without falling into despair, to live with dignity even in the chaos. The Stoic medicine for the soul works in three main areas. Diagnosis, spotting disordered emotions. First step is to identify where the soul is sick. Do we fear the judgment of others? Are we consumed by envy or pride? Do we chase pleasure as if it's the only source of happiness? Do we rage against anything outside our control? These are signs of a soul that needs healing. And the Stoic is, above all, a sharp observer of themselves. They don't get fooled by appearances. They investigate their own thoughts like a doctor checks a fever, with courage, with precision, with a will to improve. Therapy. Applying the power of reason after diagnosis comes treatment, and for the Stoics, the main remedy of the soul is reason. Reason is the antidote to emotions that take over. Anger, respond with calm reasoning. Envy, fight it with gratitude and focus on your own growth. Fear, diffuse it by remembering you don't control the future, only your response to it. Reason is the only cure for the wounds of the soul. Seneca using reason doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming clear-headed. It means replacing impulsive reactions with intentional, ethical choices. Strengthening. Building a resilient soul philosophy also works as prevention. It builds inner strength. Just as the body can be trained to endure pain, the soul can be trained to endure suffering. Through reflection and daily journaling, through practicing mindfulness and detachment, through commitment to virtue as the highest value, ultimate goal of this Stoic medicine is self-sufficiency, a state where your inner peace no longer depends on anything outside of you. You can be praised or criticized, win or lose, be seen or ignored, and still remain whole, because your well-being is rooted in what can't be taken away, your virtue. Seneca wrote in his letters to Lucilius, "No wind is favorable to the sailor who doesn't know where he's going. But for the one guided by reason, every wind is useful." That's the ultimate healing of the soul, to have direction, to know what you're really after, to know what's worth your energy and what's not, to act in alignment with what you believe, to stand firm, even in uncertain times. Philosophy won't erase life's pain, but it heals the inner chaos that makes that pain unbearable. It teaches us not to amplify suffering through fear, pride, or clinging. It gives us, instead, clarity, perspective, and inner strength. Because in the end, a healed soul isn't one that never feels pain. It's one that feels deeply but doesn't let the pain take over. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them. Epictetus. This quote from Epictetus isn't just a psychological insight. It's a core Stoic teaching about the power of emotions and our power over them. In a world where every feeling is treated like absolute truth, Stoicism offers a powerful reminder: feeling is human. But being ruled by emotions is a form of slavery. Epictetus doesn't tell us to suppress emotions. He doesn't say we should pretend we don't feel anger, sadness, fear, or frustration. What he suggests is deeper and harder: to feel it all, but with clarity. Let emotions exist, yes, but don't let them decide who you are or how you act, because the problem isn't feeling emotions. The problem is letting them take control. You may not control your initial feeling, but you can and must control what you do with it. Epictetus, and that requires a key distinction. Control is not repression. Repressing emotions means sweeping them under the rug, pretending they're not there, numbing yourself. But everything repressed festers, and eventually it erupts as resentment, emotional breakdown, or cold detachment. Control, on the other hand, means facing the emotion directly, acknowledging it, accepting it, and then choosing not to be ruled by it. Imagine your mind as a fortress. Emotions come knocking, sometimes gently, sometimes like a storm. The Stoic doesn't ignore them. He looks through the window, he observes, and then decides, does this emotion deserve to come in? Is it bringing something helpful, or will it set me on fire inside? If I let it in, what will I do with it? That's the real Stoic power, not avoiding emotion, but not being its slave. Let's look at how this applies to some common emotions. Anger. It comes fast, like fire. But if left unchecked, it burns bridges, ruins relationships, and drags us down. Epictetus said, "Anger is born from frustrated expectations. You expected control, but didn't have it. You wanted justice and faced ignorance instead." Controlling anger doesn't mean denying it. It means asking, what can I do that's actually helpful right now? Will this reaction fix anything or make it worse? Fear. Fear is a valid emotion. It protects us. It warns us. But when it takes the wheel, it paralyzes. Epictetus taught that most of our fears don't come from reality, but from how we interpret things. Fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of the future. What exactly are you afraid of? Something under your control? Then take action. Something outside of it? Then accept it. Epictetus. Sadness. Sadness runs deep, often in silence. It shouldn't be ignored, but it also shouldn't be fed by destructive thoughts. The Stoic welcomes sadness, but doesn't become it. He asks, what is this pain trying to teach me? Am I grieving something I lost, or something I never truly had? Epictetus saw desire as a powerful force, and if it's not guided by reason, it makes us prisoners. We desire what we can't control, and that leads to suffering. We want to be loved, praised, rich, immune to criticism. But none of that is guaranteed. The Stoic redirects desire. Instead of wanting to control the world, he wants to control himself. So how do you practice this? Emotional control takes training. Just like a musician trains their ear, or an athlete trains their body, the philosopher trains the soul. Mindful awareness of your thoughts. Before emotion takes over, there's always a thought, a story, a judgment. Catch it early, and you've already won half the battle. Am I seeing this clearly, or blowing it out of proportion? Is this thought leading me toward peace, or away from it? Rational inner dialogue. Epictetus taught his students to talk to their emotions, to treat them like visitors, not tyrants. Yes, I'm angry, but is that useful right now? Yes, I'm sad, but can I grow through this? Pray. Daily review. At the end of the day, the Stoic reflects. Was I led by emotion today? Did I act from virtue or from impulse? This habit builds self-mastery. Over time, it clears and strengthens the mind. Cultivate opposing virtues. The best way to manage emotions isn't to fight them, it's to grow their opposite virtues. For anger, patience. For fear, courage. For envy, gratitude. For blind desire, moderation. Stoicism doesn't want you to be made of stone. It wants you to be made of steel, strong, grounded, aware, able to feel without being swept away, able to respond without being reactive. Because in the end, you don't choose what you feel, but you do choose what you do with what you feel. And that choice defines your inner freedom. What's not good for the hive is not good for the bee. Marcus Aurelius. This is one of the most powerful lines from Meditations. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, knew this truth well. No one lives just for themselves. Even when our ego pulls us toward isolation, self-interest, and protecting what's mine, we're still part of something bigger. And for a Stoic, living well means living in harmony with that bigger picture, with the community. The idea of social duty is central in Stoic philosophy. It's not enough to quietly cultivate virtue inside ourselves. Virtue, to be complete, has to show up in the real world, in how we treat people, in how we engage with society, in the way we contribute, even when no one's watching. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Humans were made for mutual help. If you're not doing something for the common good, you're off track." And that's radically different from modern individualism. Today, we often hear things like, follow your own path, put yourself first, don't worry about other people's needs. But to a Stoic, that mindset corrupts the soul. It separates us from who we truly are, rational, social, and interdependent beings. For Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism was a philosophy of duty. Not duty as in forced responsibility, but as a natural result of reason. If we all share reason, the logos, then we're all part of the same moral community. We are limbs of the same body. Just like the hand works for the good of the whole, we must act for the good of the community. Marcus Aurelius, that metaphor is powerful. It shows that Stoic ethics isn't just personal, it's relational. There's no point in seeking wisdom and virtue if it doesn't lead to justice, compassion, and service. Philosophy isn't supposed to be a selfish escape. It's meant to be active participation. Living only for yourself isn't just a moral mistake. It's a mistake about what it means to be human. A person who lives only for their own interests loses meaning. The soul shrinks in isolation, but the spirit that serves, helps, and acts for the good of others, that spirit expands. Marcus Aurelius understood this. Even as emperor, he saw power as service. He saw leadership as responsibility, not privilege. And he reminded us, we're not here to hoard, we're here to build together. So what does it really mean to contribute to the common good? Act justly in all relationships. Justice isn't just a nice idea, it's about how we treat people, with respect, with honesty, with empathy. It means not exploiting, not manipulating, not deceiving. It means doing the right thing, even when there's no reward. Don't do anything that doesn't help the community. If it's not useful, don't say it. Don't do it. Marcus Aurelius too. Take responsibility for your part of the whole. You don't need to change the world alone. But you are responsible for your part, your family, your work, your neighborhood, your circle of influence. Every just action, no matter how small, strengthens the community, and every selfish act weakens it. Don't ignore other people's pain. To the Stoics, all rational beings share the same divine principle, reason, so there are no others. Their pain is your pain. Injustice to one is injustice to all. A Stoic doesn't turn a blind eye to suffering. They try to help with words, with actions, with respectful silence, or with listening. Work for harmony, not conflict. Marcus Aurelius saw daily life as a constant exercise in patience and compassion. He wrote, "People will act badly, but that doesn't excuse you from acting well. Living in a community means dealing with tension, but the Stoic doesn't fight fire with fire. They respond firmly, yes, but always guided by reason and unity." Stoicism teaches that personal fulfillment comes from serving the greater good. That takes letting go of ego, letting go of the need for attention, understanding that we're not the center of the universe. We're part of something bigger. Living only for yourself may look like freedom, but deep down, it's a trap. Because the human soul thrives when it's in service. If each person does their part well, the universe will stay in order. Marcus Aurelius, that's the heart of Stoic social duty. You don't have to fix everything, but you do have to show up as part of the whole, with awareness, with purpose, with a commitment to something beyond yourself. In these times of emotional isolation, tribalism, and indifference, Marcus Aurelius's wisdom hits harder than ever. You belong to the world, and the world needs your virtue in action. Pain is just an opinion. Courage is a virtue. Epictetus, if there's one thing every human being shares, it's pain. Physical, emotional, existential. Pain is part of life. But for the Stoics, pain itself isn't the problem. The real issue is how we respond to it. Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, they all knew real pain. Epictetus lived as a slave and had his leg broken by his master. Seneca was exiled, slandered, and forced to take his own life. Marcus Aurelius lost most of his children and ruled during wars and plagues. And still, none of them saw pain as the enemy. On the contrary, they saw it as training ground for virtue, especially courage. For the Stoics, courage isn't the absence of pain, it's strength in the face of it. It's the conscious choice not to give in. It's the ability to hold steady even when your body or heart feels like it's falling apart. Pain is just a sensation. You're the one who gives it meaning. Epictetus, this is one of the core Stoic teachings. Pain doesn't break us. It's how we judge that pain that makes the difference. If you tell yourself, this is unbearable, then it will be. But if you say, this is hard, but it doesn't define me, then you begin to take your power back. And that's what Epictetus meant by one of his boldest ideas. Pain is just an opinion. What does that mean? He's not saying pain isn't real. He's saying pain by itself has no deeper meaning. It's our interpretation that gives it weight. Imagine two people going through the same tragedy. One collapses, spirals, loses direction. The other still hurts, but stays grounded, finds purpose, grows. The difference, not the pain itself, but the way they face it. That's why the Stoics trained their minds to meet pain with courage. They knew they couldn't control pain, but they could control their attitude toward it. What's hard for others isn't hard for me, if I've decided it's not. Marcus Aurelius. This kind of Stoic courage isn't loud. It's not about yelling or putting on a tough act. It's quieter and stronger. It's inner strength. It's the decision to keep living with virtue, even when you're hurting inside. Courage doesn't erase pain, but it keeps pain from changing who you are. Why does this matter so much? Because life will hurt you more than once, and often when you least expect it. You'll lose people you love. You'll face rejection, illness, loneliness. You'll fall. You'll doubt. You'll be betrayed. And when that happens, you'll have two choices. Fight against reality, feel sorry for yourself, fall into despair. Look pain in the eye, accept it, and stay whole. Stoic courage always chooses the second option, but it doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's built. It's trained in everyday struggles. When you face criticism without falling apart, when you accept a no without bitterness, when you feel frustrated but don't act on it, when you feel fear but move forward anyway. Each of those is a rep in the gym of the soul. And like muscles, your spirit grows stronger through resistance. Don't ask for a life without pain. Ask for the strength to face it with dignity. Seneca, that's the true Stoic mindset. They don't wish for a comfortable life. They wish to be strong enough to live any life with honor. And when pain knocks at the door, they don't welcome it. But they don't run either. They feel it. They suffer. But they don't surrender. They remember, pain is temporary, but virtue is forever. Courage isn't stubbornness, it's not numbness, it's clarity. Clarity that pain can't take away the most important things: your character, your integrity, your inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of loss and empire-sized pressure, wrote, "If pain can be endured, I'll endure it. If it can't, it will kill me. But even then, it won't defeat me." That sums up the Stoic spirit. You are not defined by your pain. You are defined by how you move through it. And the more you train that courage, the freer you become. Because once you stop fearing pain, the world loses its grip on you. You accept the fragility of life and still choose to live with strength. In the end, courage is loyalty to virtue under pressure. And that loyalty takes more than feelings. It takes decision, it takes discipline. It takes commitment to something bigger than comfort, your integrity. So when pain comes, and it will, remember, you're not alone. You already have the strength inside you, and more than that, you have the power to move through pain with courage, with dignity, with greatness. Because to the Stoics, pain is a challenge. But courage is the answer that turns pain into a teacher, not a tyrant. Examine your actions every day. Marcus Aurelius. Meditations. With this simple phrase, Marcus Aurelius gives us one of the most powerful practices in Stoic philosophy: daily self-examination. Not as a way to feel guilty or punish yourself, but as a daily ritual of clarity, a return to awareness, a reconnection with reason. The Stoic doesn't live on autopilot. They don't let the days drift by like leaves in the wind. They stop, reflect, ask themselves, did I live according to my values today? That question, asked every day, transforms the soul, because it forces us to face the mirror, without masks, without excuses, without distractions. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and the most powerful man of his time, still sat down each night to write in his journal, a notebook we now call Meditations. He wrote with one simple goal: to become a better person. Don't run away from self-examination. Running from yourself is the most dangerous escape. Marcus Aurelius. That sentence captures the core of Stoic practice. Self-mastery begins with self-awareness, and self-awareness begins with the habit of honestly looking at your own actions. Seneca also taught this with intensity. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? What did I fail to do? It's not about harsh self-judgment. It's about course correction. Because every day brings mistakes. Every day brings distractions. Every day includes small betrayals of our values. But the wise person doesn't ignore that. They observe, they learn, and most importantly, they adjust. Why is self-examination so important? We live in a time of constant noise and very little inner silence. It's easy to get lost, to confuse productivity with purpose, to act on impulse without thinking about the consequences of our words, choices, and habits. The Stoic understands that moral vigilance is a daily practice. It's not enough to know what's right. You have to check day after day if you're actually doing it. The soul grows stronger from self-examination than from praise. Marcus Aurelius. This process depends on 3 key habits. Radical honesty with yourself. Self-examination is not for show. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about facing yourself. Did I act out of reason or vanity? Was I fair or reactive? Was I patient or did I explode out of frustration? These questions only work if you answer them with brutal honesty, not with excuses, not with clever justifications, but with the courage to admit where you're still weak. And here's the thing, admitting a flaw doesn't make you weaker, it makes you stronger. Owning a mistake is the first step to fixing it. Clarity is the beginning of freedom. Moral memory. Judge your actions, not just your intentions. Most people judge themselves by their intentions. I meant well. I was trying to help. My heart was in the right place. But the Stoic knows actions matter more than intentions. Self-examination means looking at what you actually did. Was that comment helpful, or just a release of anger? Was that silence wise, or just fear in disguise? Was that act of kindness real, or did I just want approval? This kind of honesty gives you ethical clarity, and clarity helps you do better tomorrow. Commitment to improvement, not perfection. The goal of Stoic self-examination isn't perfection. That would be arrogance. The goal is steady progress. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, never saw himself as above anyone. He wrote about his flaws with humility, about his struggles with calm, because he knew virtue is a journey, not a destination. Daily self-examination is like sharpening a blade. Each night, you clear away the rust of the day. You reset your aim. You deepen your intention. That's how character is built. How to practice Stoic self-examination. You can apply this in a simple 3-step process every evening. Review the facts. What did I experience today? What moments tested me? What decisions shaped me? Moral analysis. Where did I act with virtue? Where did fear, pride, or ego take over? Plan the next step. What can I improve tomorrow? What do I need to make right? How can I act more in line with reason? You don't have to write long journal entries. But you do need to be honest. You need to be consistent. You need to do it with a heart focused on wisdom. The Stoic is not the one who never makes mistakes. It's the one who commits to making fewer mistakes every day. And that's only possible with self-awareness, with review, with presence of mind. An unexamined life is a wasted life. Socrates, inspiration to all Stoics. In a world where everyone has opinions but few look inward, this Stoic practice is revolutionary. It pulls us out of passivity. It teaches us responsibility. It reconnects us to what really matters. Living, well, is not about luck. It's about discipline. It's about a choice you make again, every single day. And as Marcus Aurelius proved, even an emperor needs to pause and ask himself in silence, today, was I worthy of my own ideals? If you've made it this far, thank you, truly. Reflecting on these Stoic principles is more than just studying philosophy. It's an invitation to live with more clarity, courage, and purpose. And if this content touched you in some way, helped you rethink your actions, or strengthened your spirit, then it's already done its job. Now, I invite you to keep practicing and to keep walking this path with us here on the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss the next videos, like this one if it made sense to you. Drop a comment. Which of these Stoic principles hit home for you today? I read everyone. Share this video with someone you know who needs to hear this message. And of course, stick around. There's a lot more practical, life-changing philosophy coming your way. See you in the next reflection. Live with reason, live with virtue, live with soul.